Hello, and welcome to the WGG How-To video for the potato chip activity. In this STEM activity, learners will determine the best or optimum potato chip by testing various potato chips for tastiness, crunchiness, greasiness, and saltiness. To do this, they will devise tests, conduct tests, and display the results using science inquiry, mathematical reasoning, and engineering design. The big STEM idea for this activity is optimization, which is an engineering concept describing the process for selecting or identifying the best or optimum product based on various features or characteristics. Some features or characteristics may have more value or weight than others, which allows for trade-offs or the consideration of one feature over another. Another way to think about optimization is it is the best or optimal outcome considering the trade-offs. First, we'll start with the materials that you will need for this activity. 4 types of potato chips that are close in look and texture, sandwich bags, markers, scissors, paper towels, and a heavy object such as a book. As always, you want to make sure that you are ready before the kids walk in. Be sure to familiarize yourself with the design challenge. Make sure you have all the materials that you'll need for this activity. You've read the facilitator's guide, which contains very important details, and you have the setup for the activity ready to go when the learners walk in. For example, you'll want to take your 4 different potato chips and place them in sandwich bags. This is a blind taste test or experiment, so make sure to use the marker to label each potato chip and also include the nutrition label beside each bag. Next, you will want to introduce the potato chip activity and get learners excited about what's next. Consider a group discussion where learners brainstorm different ideas about considerations they might make when purchasing a product. For example, students might think about style, fabric, cost, fit, or color when selecting and purchasing clothes. Other examples of products that are relevant to kids might include foam or pizza, and below each product are a couple of examples that students might suggest as consideration when purchasing either of these things. After a few minutes of discussion about different products, focus learners on potato chips. Be sure to allow them the opportunity to brainstorm as many ideas as possible about what they consider when purchasing potato chips. For this activity, we will focus on 4 characteristics or features of potato chips: taste, crunch, greasiness, and saltiness. Now let's look at a few highlights from this activity. As always, learners will log in individually to Wise Engineering and view this overview screen, which lays out the different steps for this activity. After learners click on the first step, they will be presented with their design challenge. For this activity, learners must design tests to determine the optimum potato chip among the 4 presented with them for a friend's party. As learners move through the activity, they will have several opportunities to show that they understand the design challenge and the skills and knowledge necessary to be successful. For this design challenge, learners will use comparative or relative rankings to decide the optimum potato chip. Make sure that on your scale, the larger numbers represent the better or best of that feature. For example, a chip that is less salty will have a score closer to 1, and a chip that is most salty will have a score closer to 4. A similar ranking scale would apply for greasiness, crunchiness, and tastiness. Invite students to determine which is best. For example, a student might determine that more greasiness is worse and assign a score of 1, while less greasiness is best and assign a score of 4. Remember, in this activity, learners are designing tests to determine the ranking for the various features of the potato chip. Let's walk through an example of a test that helps us determine the greasiness of each potato chip. To determine the greasiness of each potato chip, place the potato chip on a paper towel. Make sure to label each potato chip, as this is a blind test or experiment. Next, place the sandwich bag over the potato chip. The sandwich bag is a non-absorbent material, therefore it won't absorb any of the greasiness from the potato chips. Then place your heavy object, such as a book, on top of the potato chip to squish it or break it against the paper towel. Continue with this method until all the potato chips have been broken. Afterward, remove each baggie, brush the potato chips to the side, and place the paper towel on a dark object so you can clearly see the greasiness of each chip. Using observation, determine the ranking for each chip. For example, chip A earned a ranking of most greasy. Finally, we have a few facilitator trips where the gotchas can get you. First, remind learners that sodium equals salt. This might be important for learners when thinking about the type of test to design for saltiness. One way is to look at the nutrition label and compare the amount of sodium for each potato chip. When designing tests, learners might choose to have a single taster. This means that the same person tastes each chip to determine the feature and ranking. Learners might also use multiple tasters to determine a ranking for each feature. For example, they might have several learners taste the potato chip for crunchiness and write down a rating. To determine an overall or group rating, they might average each of the ratings together. Regardless of the method that learners decide to use, make sure that they are consistent across chips. In other words, do the same thing to each chip. And finally, there are no right answers. This activity is about optimization, considering trade-offs and values in order to determine the best or optimum chip. Answers will vary, tests will vary, and that's great.